Thank you. My name's Richard. I work at the Century 16 in Deer Park. Century is actually bought out by Cinemark a couple years ago, so a lot of people get that confused, especially with looking up on Google, because they'll type in Cinemark and we won't pop up. You have to type in Century. I've been with Cinemark for like 6 years, actually, coming up in August, and a lot of people think because I've been working there for 6 years that I'm older when I'm actually only 22. So it gets a little awkward when I have to do interviews with people and they're like twice my age and they realize that I'm their boss. But yeah, you guys have anything for me starting off or anything or
Yeah, first off, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show, Richard. It's a
yeah.
pleasure to have you. And then my initial question I wanted to start you off with was the movie theater is obviously a very crowded place. Does it ever get really overwhelming when there's too many people on like a busy Saturday or Sunday?
You know what? Funny enough to say, with COVID, it kind of taught people, not even with the movie theater industry, just anywhere that personal space is really important. And people were kind of looked at as crazy people if you kind of ask somebody to, take a few steps back. But given the 6 feet because of COVID, it kind of taught everybody, hey, personal space is really important, especially when you're in a movie theater. In my specific theater, if every single seat in the auditorium was bought out at one time, that's 3,682 people that are in the theater at one point in time, which is a lot. It's a very big theater. We have 16 screens. Our biggest one seats 292. Right now we have reserved seating. Almost everybody does, but in the past, if you didn't have reserved seating, it was kind of just regular auditorium seating. You sat where you sat. After 50% of the occupancy, we had to assign an usher, the people that clean the theaters, to go in there and actually seat everybody. And I've sat people up to 400, and I've sold it like to the T. That I've sold 300 of the tickets, rang them up, and then actually get into the theater. And it gets really awkward because a lot of people want that seat is their seat. So asking people in 5 minutes before the movie starts, or even right when the credits, right when the movie's starting to roll, a lot of people are asking to sit in the very top row and it's entirely filled out. So it gets awkward. It's definitely overwhelming still to this day, just because if you see a crowd of 4,000 people, unless you're like Beyonce or like Billie Eilish or something like that, you're not really used to it. I've gotten better with it over the years, but for people that have just started, and a lot of times kids, this is their first job. So imagine yourself at 16 seeing even a fraction of that, seeing 300 people right in front of you, and you have to do X, Y, and Z, and it's your very first job. It gets really awkward at that point. But
So I know that COVID had a huge impact on the movie industry, and so you're talking about like all the people that came into the movies. I'm guessing there wasn't a lot of that during COVID. So how much do you feel like the movie industry and has recovered from that? Are there still a lot of people coming in? And yeah, what else can you tell us about how the impact COVID had on your job specifically, and how it might be going forward?
COVID actually, it kind of helped us, but didn't. I mean, every single business kind of took a hard turn with that. Places were closed. You can't make money off of being closed. But it kind of helped us just as employee wise, teaching people that we have to actually care for our employees. And with my company specifically, we were already in the midst of doing that and trying to make people actually care for the job and show that we cared them. But a lot of people went to the movie theater because they like being in the actual movie theater. If you just go on Netflix and you just pick a movie, it's different than seeing the new Batman or the new Spider-Man that came out. I mean, you can see videos when Endgame came out, and if you just go into YouTube and you type in Endgame, reaction scenes, there's like 50 million views, and it's a huge theater. People are going wild and going crazy, but you don't get that real same effect when you're in your living room or anything like that. So it's kind of helped us in the point that a lot of people have missed that, because it's been almost 3 years now where people don't have that interaction with people to people. So they've really missed that and they've wanted to keep doing that. And it really pushes the film industry as far as Universal and Disney and stuff like that, that it's still pushing them to make a lot of movies because they realize that movie theaters are going to stay around. Even if you can buy it on Disney Plus for extra $15 a month or anything, people would still rather pay $15 in person or even less and still get that actual experience for it. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you've been at this job for about 6 years. So what are your responsibilities as a manager at a movie theater?
So every theater is different to start off with. You know, being in the Midwest is very different from being in the East Coast or the West Coast or anything. I just started at this specific theater about a year ago. So it is double the space, but it does about half of the attendance. So that is really hard, is because you can ask anybody that works at movie theater. Every week is something different. You know, last week could be the brand new Spider-Man that just came out. And then this week can be just a complete flop movie that you don't even know what it is at all. So adapting to change is the biggest thing. There are some movies that even come out in spans of like 3 days. A movie will come out on a Wednesday and a Thursday and a Friday. It doesn't happen all too often, but it does. And you have to react very, very quickly, because you could be working that Wednesday and do 50 people, and that Thursday you can do 2,000 people. It is really hard, but you just have to make sure, in all honesty, that you keep a cool, calm, level head, because there are some people out there in the world that are just mad. So really just keeping your cool and just listening to them is what's going to help you the best, honestly.
Have you ever been spoiled for a movie that you wanted to see because you work at a theater?
Yes. um, Ushers go into the theater and they do theater checks. I'm sure you guys probably seen somebody just walk across the theater and just check it, just for safety reasons and making sure that the movie's actually starting and the audio's good and all that stuff. But yeah, it's not really too fun when you have to go see those movies. And I don't really get hurt by the spoilers, because usually I take the day off so I can see that movie. The issue is when it's a scary movie and you're in a huge theater of 500 and there's just blaring sound and a giant red demon on the screen, and there's 50, 100 other people just in the auditorium screaming at you, and you have to be calm, cool, and collected and just walk across like you didn't see anything at all. I've actually had people get in trouble because they've said, I'm not going to go in that theater and check it, because they're so scared to walk in there. So yeah, it's not fun.
On days like you said when you guys are really busy, there's obviously probably a handful of people that are not behaving to the standards that the movie theater applies. So how do you handle the people that don't know how to abide by the rules while still keeping a level of professionalism?
You know, the best thing that I tell my managers and just employees is that it's not personal. You know, don't lose sleep over it. There's a lot of people that come up after me like, did I handle that right? Is it okay? Am I going to lose my job? That is the big question. You know, if you handed somebody a small popcorn instead of a medium popcorn, you're not going to lose your job over that. And it's really hard conveying that to employees, because 9 times out of 10, it is their first job. So the first step in that is actually training the employees to learn that it is okay to make mistakes, and that it's okay to, if you're the bad guy for doing that or anything. You didn't ruin their entire day. If they say that you did it all, you really didn't. They're just mad in the moment at that point. But really having a good, strong team of managers being able to back up your employees and actually say, you know, I'm sorry, ma'am, sir, that you can't bring in a water bottle, you know, and finding something else out for them. A lot of times people are just mad in the moment, and it doesn't even really pertain to the theater industry, kind of just retail jobs in general. A lot of people just get mad because it was $26 yesterday and now it's 30 today, and it's your job to just keep a cool, calm head and not try to lash back at them. You know, we're in a day and age now where a lot of people will flip out their phone and record you and make it the biggest thing ever, which have happened to me, and is not fun. So try and be as general as possible, and when in doubt, just apologize. Yeah.
So it seems like movie theaters are definitely a place to see all different kinds of people. Do you have any particularly crazy patron stories that you can tell us?
I have a couple. One time I actually got the cops called on me because we were supposed to have, well, not even us, there were other theaters around us that had midnight showings, and we weren't one of the theaters that day. So if you just went into Google and you just typed in, you know, Batman showing, it pops up a whole bunch of lists of theaters, and a lot of people don't pay attention. They just pick the first one that's right there. So this person had bought their tickets for a different theater, and we're already closed. It's 12:25, right after midnight. There's only me and three other people here, and this guy's yelling in my face saying that I'm being this, I'm being that, I'm being racist, I'm being, just everything in the book. He cussed at me. He called me so many things. He actually gave me death threats. I actually had to walk out with security at the end of the night and had cops follow me home because this person was just so irate and it wasn't even my fault. And I had some employees in the back that, they were ready to do whatever they needed to do to defend me, but they were like, oh, you were really calm. It's like after a while, you kind of just get used to it, which is sad, just the world that we live in. But it really is. After a while, you get used to it. You know how to handle people. But that was probably one of the worst, is having somebody call the cops on me. But it was really funny because the cop said, sir, he's not being racist. He just is not open at this time. So then he actually ended up throwing his phone at me, and I dodged it in time. So it shattered across the thing. And then he tried to sue me because I broke his phone. So yeah, it was really awkward for him, not for me. So yeah.
All right, so you mentioned like midnight movies and stuff. What is the latest you've been, working in, like, the timing of that?
So movies are only getting longer now. Probably the longest movie that just came out right now, I would have to say, is Batman. It was 184 minutes, so that's 3 hours right there. And then previews, or the trailers, are actually only getting longer also. Those are about half hour. So that's a 3.5 hour movie. So if you put that even at 10 o'clock, that movie's getting out at 1:30 in the morning. And then you have to secure your building, check everything. Let's say it takes about a half hour. You're getting out at 2. If you have that at midnight, you can get out at 6 in the morning sometimes. I've actually worked at my last theater where we ran consecutively. We didn't close at all. It was for a big Marvel, the Avengers, and we stayed open for 3 days straight. It was a lot of wear and tear. A lot of people signed up for it. Personally, I did too. It was not fun. I will never do it again. But yeah, it is not fun being there that late at night.
I was wondering if you could tell us the process of how a film, or of how a theater receives a film, and what part you play in doing that.
So actually, a lot of people still think that we're up in our booth area with a film reel and we're threading it and doing all that type of stuff, which we don't do that anymore. We stopped doing that like years ago. Cinemark was actually the very first company to have an all digital theater. AMC and all those places kind of followed suit after that. But now all of our theaters are completely digital. All the films get sent to us, kind of just how you get anything online right now, like how you do something on Netflix. It just gets streamed to you. It gets sent to a main computer that we have, and you just send it to whatever specific theater that you want, and that's pretty much it. I mean, there's certain things and safety features that go with it also, so that way you can't just grab a flash drive or your laptop and just plug it in there and just keep it. There are precautions with that, but it's really that easy. It takes like 2 minutes. A lot of times if you just ask anybody that works at a theater and you're like, hey, I'm just interested, can I like come up there and I just see it? A lot of times they will bring you up there. There are a lot of guests, or a lot of times Girl Scouts, they're really interested with that and they want to do like a whole viewing of the theater and just know how it all works. So a lot of times if you're interested, if you just ask somebody like, can I see it? They'll probably bring you up there.
Over the past few questions, you've talked a lot about having bad customers or just a lot of really difficult responsibilities that you have to handle. And that leads me to ask, do you like your job?
I love my job. I actually get into a lot of arguments with my father because he thinks that there's better jobs out there in the world and stuff like that. I actually left Cinemark during COVID because it was not an essential business, so I wasn't getting paid. And unemployment, I had unemployment issues, so I couldn't do anything with that. So I actually went to go work with him, and he was like, "Oh, isn't this great? It's amazing, the benefits and blah blah blah." And it was just not fun. I did the job, I did it good, I did it well, but it just didn't have that same atmosphere towards it. There are a lot of people. If you ask anybody that works in a movie theater, they really love it because of the people that are there, the family. I'm actually in the process of trying to get our theater and then my last theater to kind of do a little like Olympics stuff against them, and not a lot of people do that kind of things. Like if you go to like a McDonald's or something like that, they don't really talk to other ones or anything. So it's cool that we can, try and plan something for other people, and get to be like, oh, did you deal with this person today? Yeah, I did too. Man, that sucks. And it's that level of unison and comfortability with somebody else. So I love it. I've been there for forever. I never thought I would be a manager. I never thought I would move up to do what I'm doing now. I honestly just kept going, and this is just where I ended up.
So I've been to the movie theater a bunch, but there's been a couple times where the movie just stopped for some reason or another. So my question is, first of all, specifically for that, what is going on there? Like, what happens when the movie stops? And also, what are other things that kind of commonly go wrong that you have to kind of troubleshoot?
So a lot of the times with that is because the people that in charge of the booth area, a lot of times they don't have proper management that follows up with them, sadly. Some people just aren't good at their job. So it sadly comes down to the guests that they have to pay the price for it. A lot of times for my theater specifically is sometimes the movie becomes corrupted and it just breaks. We're still in technology. It's not perfect. Sometimes it just doesn't work. So we have to we call it top center. And we just have to get everything figured out and suited for it. There are times that I've seen movies that haven't necessarily stopped, that let's say you buy an Avengers movie, but like The Ring is actually playing instead of it, and I've had to hand out, free tickets to 3-year-olds that just saw half an hour of a rated R movie when they're supposed to be seeing Spider-Man. It gets really awkward because in the past at least for us specifically, our system is you had to manually connect and link certain movies together. So if you didn't have anybody check your stuff, or if you didn't check it yourself, you could have that issue a lot. And a lot of times 3D movies will be playing in an auditorium that's not suitable for a 2D one. So sometimes it'll look a little fuzzy and it will come out like red and green. I've had movies like play on the ceiling for some reason. I don't know why. It just happens. Sometimes you just can't fix it. Sometimes the bulb just goes bad. I actually should have brought one today. It's probably like this big. They're like $10,000 bulbs. They're xenon bulbs. Changing them takes like a 2-hour process. They're in a huge metal casing in the projector, in another casing, in another casing. And sometimes those just break. I mean, they're a light bulb essentially. If one of these just falls, kind of game over at that point. So it's just technology and getting used to it and making sure that you check everything, really.
What is your favorite movie?
In general, it would probably have to be, I love the Jurassic Park series. I love all of those. When Jurassic World came out, I was all over it, and I have a baby brother, what a lot of people think is my son, that I took him to see the movie, and we got little dinosaur buckets, like a dinosaur egg that had popcorn in it, same with the drinks, and that's probably the best thing. And there's a big following with that movie as well, especially with the new one coming out in the next month or so. So I love that one. I've watched it ever since I was a kid. I think it's one of the best movies ever, personally.
If you can remember, can you tell us what was the first movie that you've seen in theaters?
Honestly, it was probably High School Musical 3. I saw it with my family, and we were the only ones in the theater, now that I think about it. And it was actually at AMC. It was our rival company. So, yeah, but that's the only thing I remember. Anything else, I'm too young for that.
Do you think that working at the movie theater has made the movie viewing experience better overall for you, or has it made it worse or impacted it at all?
Not really. I don't really think about it because a lot of times, they say, if you really want to love something, don't go see how it's made. Don't see behind the curtain at all. It doesn't really change anything because when you're seeing a movie, you're watching that movie. You're in that experience. You're not really focusing on anything else at all. You're staring at one thing directly in front of you. Your mind's in a completely different place. You're as happy as you can be. So it's not really that difficult to disassociate, I guess.
I know like a lot of movies have fan followings in which people like dress up and stuff like that. So this is twofold question. First of all, like what are some of the best costumes you've seen? And secondly, what is like the most obnoxious fan group? From the movie theater's perspective, either they're the most noisy or just like they make a mess or spoil it for everyone.
So the best costume that I have seen by far is when Maleficent first came out. There was this girl that had her makeup all done. She had everything. She was dressed in an all black gown. She had the horns. She even had a pair of wings that she made she had like a little string that she could pull on them and they would come out and they would kind of flap and stuff like that. She had a staff. She had everything. Like the whole 9 yards. She did it. She was dressed to the floor. It was amazing. But in all honesty, I mean, the Marvel fandom, I wouldn't say they're one of the most annoying or anything, but they are definitely one of the most forward. And I've had people wait in line days before, and it's a reserved show. You have your seat, you're in J14, you're done, you don't have to wait here. But people will still wait in line for days just to make sure that they can say that they are the first person for it. I've done that at times, but I would personally never wait 3 days in advance for that. That is just too much for me. I got other things I got to do, especially if my seat is already saved for me. But they are probably one of the most strict following on that. They will do it until, they pass themselves. But yeah.
Okay, so thank you for coming once again. And just really quickly, do you have anything that you want to say or, promote? Is there any movies that you're like super into that you want, to get the word out or anything like that?
Honestly, I would see any movie right now just because, especially if you haven't seen one since COVID, getting back in that experience is probably the best thing, in all honesty, just to kind of, relieve all that stress for yourself. It's the best thing, especially when you see they're doing a whole bunch of remakes right now. I mean, seeing Lion King as a kid and then seeing it as an adult now, it's so nostalgic. It's just so nice, and especially that the movie industry is so crazy now, and just seeing movies on the laser projector, they're so crisp, so clean. It's just so crazy to see how far it's come, and it's just nice to see it. So go see any movie, in all honesty. Sonic is something that came out right now. I think it's a good movie. I like the first one, even though it's a kid movie. It has funny things in there and stuff like that. So I would say go see that.